This is 9 News with Lizzie Pearl.
Good morning. A manhunt is on in Queensland to track down a third suspect wanted after a shocking shooting in Brisbane. 2 others are facing court right now. Kate Lamb has the latest.
Having spent the night behind bars, 2 men aged 19 and 20 are today facing more than 30 serious charges between them, including attempted murder over a terrifying shooting in the heart of Brisbane City, which sent people bolting for cover on Saturday night. Police say the accused were part of a trio inside this car who confronted a man on Mary Street before pulling the trigger in a targeted attack, with pellets striking the victim, aged in his 30s, in his chest and leg, while 2 young women were also hit in the leg. Panicked witnesses heard 2 gunshots and cowered in a kebab shop as the alleged gunman sped past them twice before fleeing the city, sparking a police chase spanning almost 20 kilometres, with the Volkswagen dumped and torched at Darra.
Oh my God.
The trio then taking off on foot, but Polair was tracking their every move from above, helping officers find 2 of the men, and they're confident they've located the firearm involved in the shooting.
Investigators are confident that that was the firearm that was used during the offence. Until the investigation unfolds, we won't really know what the motive for why the attack was targeted against this individual.
A third suspect has now spent more than 35 hours on the run, so investigators are determined to track the 22-year-old man down. As for the 3 victims, they've all been released from hospital.
Federal Treasurer Jim Chalmers says the government isn't considering any further tax changes after the Stage 3 tax cut shake-up. Let's go live to Nine's political editor, Charles Croucher. Charles, the Treasurer has just spoken. What did he say?
Good morning, Lizzie. Jim Chalmers says further tax changes aren't being contemplated. I mean, of course, the government was saying similar things about the Stage 3 tax cuts at this time last week. However, changes to negative gearing or capital gains tax would be far more risky politically, even with the current shortage of housing and drastic growth in rents. The government is continuing to emphasise the benefits of these new tax changes to low and middle income earners. They will all receive more pay in each pay packet from July 1. Jim Chalmers says it's a relief and reform approach to cost of living challenges, but that won't stretch to property.
We're not contemplating or considering resurrecting the policies that we took to the 2019 election.
The Coalition is still contemplating their own position on these new tax changes. Finally, Lizzie, after business groups called for tax cuts to offset growth in minimum wage rates, the Treasurer says he believes our lowest earners should get both a tax cut and a pay bump when the minimum wage rate is next reviewed. Lizzie?
Charlie Croucher there for us in Canberra. A horror attack directed towards IGA employees has left a community in northwest Sydney shocked. Maggie Rayworth has the story.
An IGA employee has been stabbed twice and his colleague who intervened was punched in the face. The incident unfolded here at the Riverston store west of Sydney. The 47-year-old man was stabbed in his chest and side. He's in a stable condition at Westmead Hospital and has undergone surgery. Police have seized a knife they found at the scene. Last night they arrested a 31-year-old man and a 21-year-old woman. The man was charged with wounding a person with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, while the woman was charged with assault, occasioning actual bodily harm and larceny. Detectives were here this morning. The pair will face Blacktown Local Court later today.
A shisha shop in Melbourne's southeast has been destroyed in a suspected arson attack early this morning. No one was inside when the blaze broke out in Cranbourne at 4:30.
It's only an investment for me, so I don't have a great deal to do with anything. Managing agent takes care of the whole lot. As long as no one's hurt and the thing's insured, so that surely they'll find out who did it and we'll go from there.
An arson chemist will be at the scene to investigate later today. Neo-Nazi gatherings in Sydney have drawn widespread condemnation with a stern warning they will be exposed. Jack Hahn has the latest.
Well, for 3 days in a row, members of the neo-Nazi National Socialist Group have gathered here in Sydney. On Friday, scores swarmed a train heading to the city. 24 hours later, police found them at a scout hall on Sydney's Upper North Shore. And just yesterday, they gathered in a park next to children playing soccer in the suburb of Artarmon.
Well, I think there's no place for these kinds of grubs in a civilised society.
Their actions have been slammed by the New South Wales Premier this morning. Chris Minns describing the members as pretty pathetic, publicly mocking them as well, saying it's embarrassing to be wearing all black on a 40-degree day.
You look ridiculous. It's absolutely pathetic, and what you're spewing on the streets of Sydney and Australia is hate-filled anti-Semitism, racism that you'll regret for the rest of your life. Message to racists, particularly those from interstate, is that you're not welcome here.
Many of the members were from Victoria, and last night this video was shot on board a bus heading home. Organisers have vowed not to pay any of the fines that have been handed to them and claim that the police response over the weekend would have cost New South Wales taxpayers.
An 18-year-old motorbike rider is in a serious condition this morning after a crash on the Pacific motorway on the Gold Coast. It's understood the woman hit a car travelling in the same direction. She's being treated at the Gold Coast University Hospital. A man's been arrested after a head-on crash in Sydney's west. The collision on Fitzwilliam Road at Toongabbie happened just before midnight. The 43-year-old Subaru driver allegedly failing a roadside drug test. The 17-year-old P-plate driver was treated for shock. Disturbing video has surfaced of Sydney FC soccer fans being chased and allegedly beaten by Melbourne Victory supporters. Christina Hearn reports.
Well, this incident has occurred after the Melbourne Victory Sydney FC match here at Amy Park on Friday night. That match ended in a draw. You can see Sydney fans set upon allegedly by Victory fans on Flinders Street and Batman Avenue around 10:30 p.m. Footage has been posted of the brawl on an Ultra supporter group Instagram page for extreme soccer fans. Police say one of the groups was actually being escorted by security when the fight broke out. Security attempted to intervene with 2 guards receiving minor injuries. Melbourne Lord Mayor Sally Catt didn't hold back when describing the actions of the soccer fans.
These people are idiots, and they spoil it for many people around them.
The fans fled the scene before police arrived. No arrests have been made. It comes after the infamous incident here at Amy Park at the end of 2022 when Victory fans invaded the pitch and the Melbourne City goalkeeper was assaulted.
Queensland police have gunned down a 26-year-old man in Townsville who allegedly threatened them with a knife during a mental health check at a Mount Louisa home. The state's police union describing it as a tragedy for both the family and police involved. The Ethical Standards Command will investigate. A shocking drone attack in the Middle East. 3 US Army soldiers killed, many more injured. A woman clings to a speeding car in a bizarre street incident. What was her motive? And one of the world's most famous paintings at the centre of a protest, appealing for healthy and sustainable food. There's been a major escalation in the conflict gripping the Middle East, with a drone attack killing 3 US troops at a military outpost in Jordan. US correspondent Lauren Tomasi with the details.
This is the first time US troops have been killed by enemy fire in the Middle East since the war in Gaza broke out. That in itself shows how precarious the situation within the region is. Those 3 US Army troops were killed when a so-called suicide drone hit a US outpost in Jordan. It's called Tower 22 and the base is right near the border with Syria. That drone strike landed near the living quarters of the base. Almost 3 dozen US personnel were injured, 3 so seriously they had to be medevaced. The US President and the Pentagon say radical Iran-backed militant groups operating in Syria and Iraq are responsible, America vowing to retaliate.
We had a tough day last night in the Middle East. We lost 3 brave souls, and we shall respond.
In the past 3 months, the Pentagon says there have been more than 150 attacks on US and coalition forces, but those attacks haven't resulted in casualties until today. The death of these US troops comes amid increasing attacks in the Red Sea. This vision, released today by the UK Ministry of Defence, showing a British warship shooting down a drone launched by Houthi rebels. Both the White House and the Pentagon have repeatedly said they don't want these tensions within the Middle East to broaden into a more wider regional conflict. So the question is, how and when will America retaliate?
2 masked gunmen have attacked a church in Istanbul during Sunday morning services, killing a parishioner. Police managed to apprehend the offenders, who claim to have been acting for Islamic State. Voters have braved freezing conditions to cast their ballots in Finland's presidential election. The nation's former Prime Minister and a former Foreign Minister are the front runners to take out the top job, progressing to the next round of the election, with voting to be held in 2 weeks. It's the first election since Finland joined NATO in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Terrifying video of a woman clinging to the top of a speeding car with her stolen French bulldog inside. The woman was in downtown Los Angeles when a stranger grabbed her dog and jumped into a car parked nearby. The pet owner held on for several blocks before being thrown off the vehicle. A reward is being offered for the dog's safe return. A wildlife charity in the Republic of Congo is facing allegations of rape and torture at the hands of some of its guards. The non-profit organisation is helped by Prince Harry, who is listed as a board member. African Parks, which manage 22 protected areas across 12 countries, is now investigating the alleged abuse. The Mona Lisa, one of the world's most famous paintings, has copped it again from protesters in Paris. Europe correspondent Karianne Greenbank explains.
Well, security guards were quick to move in after the 2 protesters threw pumpkin soup at the world-famous painting. They were environmental protesters yelling about people's rights to healthy and sustainable food. The 16th century Leonardo da Vinci artwork is kept behind protective glass, so the Louvre says that it wasn't damaged. But security staff quickly ushered visitors out and moved to set up black screens to block people's view of the protest. It's not the first time the Mona Lisa has been targeted by protesters. Back in 2022, an activist threw cake at the painting. This attack was by a group called Food Counterattack. They claimed responsibility, saying they were raising awareness about the plight of farmers in the country. There have been numerous protests by farmers in Paris in recent days, angry over rising fuel costs and increasing regulation. And they recently blocked main roads in and out of the French capital. The Louvre says it will lodge a complaint about this attack on the Mona Lisa. France's culture minister says no cause can justify the world-famous painting being targeted.
Jannik Sinner has been handed the Australian Open trophy after staging an epic comeback to win his maiden Grand Slam. Nathan Curry was there for the celebrations.
Well, we're not used to seeing a fresh face here at the Monday Winners Media Conference. For the last 10 years, it has been one of the big 3 claiming the Australian Open, but now it's Jannik Sinner's turn to bask in the celebrations. He's won his first Grand Slam. He did it in style too, with a massive comeback victory. He hasn't had too long to celebrate just yet. It was around 12 hours ago. He was still on court wrapping up the win, and he's been a busy man ever since.
It feels great. It's nice to be here. The weather is good. I didn't sleep much, but it's great emotions. Slowly realizing what I've done. It's a great achievement for me and my team. So really happy to be here.
It's been another successful AO from the organisers' perspective too. They've set an attendance record, more than 1.1 million people making their way to Melbourne Park, and they're keen to build on that next year as well.
The influence of Taylor Swift has switched to politics. How the pop singer could sway this year's US presidential election. Is your morning brew expanding your waistline? And in sport, Daniil Medvedev makes unwanted history with his epic collapse in the Australian Open final. Taylor Swift could have an even bigger influence this year, with experts now saying she could sway the US election. In a survey of 1,000 eligible voters, 18% of them said they would be more likely or significantly likely to vote for the candidate endorsed by the pop queen. Queen Camilla has been seen making multiple visits to King Charles, who is recovering from surgery to treat an enlarged prostate. She's made 3 visits to the London clinic over a 24-hour period. The King will be out of action over the coming month as he continues to recover. Sports news now, and Russian Daniil Medvedev has made unwanted history with his loss in the Australian Open final to Jannik Sinner. Medvedev spent more than 24 hours on court throughout the tournament, a new record for a man at a Grand Slam. It's his second 5-set loss in a final at Melbourne Park. The Broncos have been left starstruck after meeting one of their sporting heroes. NFL superstar Tom Brady signing a few autographs and taking photos with the team before offering some words of wisdom. The 7-time Super Bowl champion also knows what it takes to bounce back from heartbreaking losses after being beaten 3 times in the sport's showpiece event. To cricket, and Australia captain Pat Cummins admits there was a part of him that was happy to see the West Indies win the Gabba Test, saying Australia's batting just wasn't good enough.
They outplayed us, they played brilliantly, and yeah, I know a lot of the talk was coming to this, that there's some debutants and some names that haven't travelled over here before, but once you put out an international 11, you know it's going to be tough, whoever you're playing.
Australia now turns its attention to getting some revenge in the ODI series, which begins in Melbourne on Friday. It was double the disappointment for Australia's men's and women's rugby sevens teams, both losing in the final in Perth. The men ran out of steam against Argentina, blown away 31-5. It was a much tighter contest for the women against Ireland, who scored with 85 seconds to go to steal a memorable victory over the Aussies. The Socceroos are safely through to the Asian Cup quarter-finals despite a spirited challenge from Indonesia, winning 4-0. The scoreline flattered Australia in the end, with coach Graham Arnold admitting external criticism affected the players.
I truly believe that this result will build the belief even more in the group. And, unfortunately they do read social media, and unfortunately they, listen to it too much, and it can knock you about a bit.
Australia will face off with Saudi Arabia or South Korea in Saturday morning's quarter-final. The Diamonds have thrashed England by 20 goals to win the Netball Nations Cup, wrapping up their undefeated tournament in style. Shooter Sophie Gubbin set the tone with a nearly flawless performance in the circle, only missing 1 attempt. It's Australia's biggest win over their rivals since 2016. And the Kansas City Chiefs are into their 4th Super Bowl in 5 years, upsetting the Baltimore Ravens 17-10 in the AFC Championship game. The defending champions will face the winner of the NFC Championship match between the Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. Well, there'll be a new way to enjoy an Aussie classic with Vegemite cheese bagels hitting the shelves at Coles today. Abe's Bagels and Vegemite teaming up to bring you a new lunchbox staple, but they are only available for a limited time, so you will have to get in quick. A health alert for your morning coffee, with experts urging people to reconsider their daily coffee choice. According to research from the Cancer Council, swapping out a regular latte for a smaller piccolo could save more than 135 calories. It's also been revealed that some iced coffee flavoured milks can contain up to 9 teaspoons of sugar. That's the equivalent of 22 red frogs. Iran has successfully launched 3 satellites into space. The satellite program has drawn criticism from Western countries who say that it may help Iran develop an intercontinental ballistic missile soon. And a carnival atmosphere has taken over Venice. Decorated rowing boats rowing along the Grand Canal for the annual Carnival Water Parade. Tourists and locals watched on as colourful clouds of confetti and balloons filled the sky. The carnival will last for a little over 2 weeks. Stay with us. Your weather details are next. Taking a look at your national weather forecast now. Rain in Brisbane with a chance of a storm today, heading for a top of 29 degrees. 29 also the forecast top in Sydney. A hot day on the way for Canberra, 32 degrees forecast. The sun will be also out across Melbourne, reaching for 28 degrees. Overcast and a top of 25 on the way today for Hobart. Adelaide will be reaching for a very warm top of 31 degrees. 30 also in Perth, and 31 the top in Darwin today, with the chance of a storm. Looking forward to tomorrow, heavy rain expected in Brisbane, 27 degrees the top. A couple of showers forecast to hit Sydney and Canberra. Temps of both 29 degrees in both of those cities. 24 the forecast top in Melbourne tomorrow, 25 in Hobart. Hobart, reaching 28 degrees in Adelaide, cloud covering both capitals tomorrow. Perth, a very hot 36 degrees, wet, and 32 for Darwin. And the forecast for Wednesday, showers in Brisbane, Sydney and Canberra, the mercury hitting the mid to high 20s in each city. A bit of cloud hanging over Melbourne, a top of 22 degrees, overcast in Hobart and Adelaide, a scorcher in Perth, 39, and storms for Darwin. And that is 9's Morning News. We'll be back at 4 o'clock with your afternoon bulletin, 5 o'clock in Adelaide and in Perth. I'm Lizzie Pearl. Thanks for your company. We'll see you soon.